Okay, and I've got the screen share up there, so you guys should be able to see the comments. And we are live.
Yeah, sorry,
Hello,
everybody.
good afternoon. It is just after lunchtime for many of y'all. Not quite lunchtime for me because we're doing a late lunch, early dinner fish fry over here. Good Lord, there are 8 freaking children upstairs right now. Half of them are mine. So we're having one of those days at the Lowry house.
Right.
Rick, I see you laughing, but I don't hear you. You didn't accidentally mute your microphone, did you?
No, that was just a quiet laugh.
Okay, fair enough. All right, and we're already getting some comments at the thread there. Oh, hey, baby.
So
Happily, it appears my wife was watching live to hear me complain about the horde of youngins.
that's awesome. So we got Drew in the comments. He says he sees nothing but a black screen.
I
just checked it on my phone.
Yeah,
we appear to be coming through.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but on the YouTube end it's working. Everything is up on the YouTube side. So we'll do a quick little intro bio. We've got Officer Anderson here with us today. We think Officer Anderson is a BFM contributor, Brushfire Mind contributor now. I think we have to say that reasonably because this is his second time on the show. He is our law enforcement expert. And believe it or not, our tiny little show has a lot of relevant experts that we call on with frequency. We've got retired Sergeant Major James Lowry. We've got, for our legal advice, we have John Harlow Byrne, Esquire. We've got more military intelligence analysts than the CIA, and we do what we do, baby. So, since we've got Rick on today, and this is the second time on the show, we was thinking about, well, he needs a nickname, and we're going to have to put that out to you guys, because Cameron has an idea, and I have a very different idea. Now, to be very clear, I already know how at least one of you is going to vote, because Papa Cop was definitely Danielle's idea. And Cameron's idea is
Sergeant Sheepdog, and that's actually my dad's idea. It apparently has connotations in the law enforcement community.
Yes, Sergeant Sheepdog.
Yes, Pop the Cop. Thank you, Danielle.
So what are the connotations there? I could make some assumptions, but
And they'd probably be accurate. When you have to deal with people who are not awake or just the public at large, they don't understand so much what's going on around them. And it's kind of like, not to be negative, but sheep who need the direction of the sheepdog to be protected. So, but people don't like the sheepdog unless they're in trouble. Then where's the sheepdog? Leo analogy.
Oh, I see. So they hate the sheepdog till the wolves come around.
There you go.
Okay.
The sheepdog will fight the wolves to the death, of course.
So Sergeant Major said, so that's it. Papa Sheepdog.
That's
Okay.
So okay, how do we want to start for today? Rick, do me a favor and just run down your bio real quick, and then we'll move on and actually dig into some of these stories.
Real quick, spent 23 years at the DeKalb County Police Department, last 10 as a uniform division sergeant, retired February 1st.
And congratulations on that, baby.
Some say my timing was excellent.
no, boy, I gotta say.
I tell you what, say when, and Cameron and the sergeant major and I will drag you down to the lake. We'll drink some bourbon and smoke some cigars.
Oh, good. Win.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we pull that together sometime real soon. Okay, so the timing on your retirement. Good God, did you just dodge? Arberry, Floyd, what's her face?
Breonna Taylor.
Breonna Taylor. There's a lot going on.
Not to mention the riots and the defund the police and Antifa Stan. And, like, seriously, I'm really glad you're not a cop anymore, Dad. I'd be a little concerned for you.
Well, the irony for me is I kind of feel like the sergeant who was with his troops all through training and getting ready to go, and right before his team gets deployed to combat, he's out. He's mustered out. I mean, that's. But look, it was time for me, and I know that.
That's fair. But we get to abuse your experience and expertise now. So let's start with just a quick recap on the individual cases and why they are interesting, kind of in relationship to one another. Following the Floyd case, we've got people calling for the abolition of the police. But it wasn't but a few weeks earlier that we had America apparently just had never heard that there was a thing called citizen's arrest. And that makes me wonder, if you abolish the police, what do you think is going to replace them? So there's a lot to dig into right there. But I also want to talk about the Breonna case a little bit. As I understand it, the narrative on this is just dead false, because the story that's being told is the cops came in with a no-knock warrant and shot her in her sleep. That's the headline. Innocent black woman murdered by racist cops with no-knock warrant while she slept peacefully in her bed. But if I'm understanding the police report correctly, what actually happened is they had a no-knock warrant for two separate addresses, one of which was her boyfriend and one of which was hers. She is named in the warrant, and so is her vehicle, because she is suspected of being like a mule or something. Drugs are being delivered to her house, which she's then delivering to the drug house. They no-knocked the suspect house without incident, and then when they knocked on her door, somebody opened fire on them, on the police, who knocked on her door despite having a no-knock warrant. And they returned fire into the house, which is how she got hit. If you let CNN tell you what happened is an evil racist cop slipped quietly in through the window and stood over her and glowered and laughed to himself quietly for several minutes, and then just opened fire into her soon-to-be lifeless sleeping corpse. But I suspect that's not the case.
No doubt. Yeah. The only thing I'm sure of is that's not what happened. With all of the things that are going on right now, and with all of this movement, we need to do this. We need to change rules. We need more law. We need more training. They've got all these magical leftist solutions. I can tell you one thing that would stop all of it overnight. 99.9% of it would stop overnight. And this thing, the public has direct control over, not the police. It's real simple. All the shootings, all the violence, all of this negative encounters with the police has one common denominator: non-compliance. All of them, non-compliance. Now, in this country, if you have an encounter with law enforcement and you are actually falsely arrested, all of this, and I've had them singing in the car, I'm going to get paid, thinking they're going to get money. Well, if the police actually do something wrong, yeah, you're going to. So why in the world are you resisting? Particularly when somebody's coming to arrest you with a gun. What are you thinking? I mean, but non-compliant, that's it. Good shoot, bad shoot, violence, accidental death, all of them, non-compliant.
Yeah,
Stop
and just
doing that, this goes away.
and a quick little public service announcements for all the future Arberries. You cannot outdraw a man who's got the drop on you.
Okay, so to kind of set the table here, let's back up a little bit. I want to reference something that Officer Tatum said in his most recent video.
Boy, he's just exploded up the charts in the last couple of weeks, hasn't he? Like, I've never even heard of him, and suddenly he is the celeb du jour.
I've been following him for a while. He's pretty good.
Yeah. He's still not quite on Candace's level, though. But anyhow.
Who is?
Nobody. So in his most recent video, one of the things that he really tried to put to bed is the racist cop narrative thing. He talked some about the statistics, about the disproportionate levels of crime that occur in the black community, and how there's actually more white deaths than black deaths in police custody, even though there are more arrests that happen with regard to black people. And he also said that if you want to see the least racist person, you actually look at the white cop that patrols a black area, because they must put all of their personal feelings aside. Otherwise, they literally cannot do their job, especially if you want to get promoted, move to special units, things like that. If you're so worried about only going after black people, and then you miss when, the Mexican guy's actually got a trunk full of meth, or you miss the white guy that's got a trunk full of cocaine, because you're so focused on black people, your career's literally not going to go anywhere. So you were in an area, you were DeKalb County Sheriff, which is a mostly black county. Would you say that Officer Tatum's his experience tracks?
Real close. I can tell you that this white cops hunting black men is 100% focus. It's not a thing. It's just not real. Now, I'm not saying somewhere, what are there, like 3,200 counties in the U.S.? That's 3,200 police departments or sheriff's departments in all the cities. I don't know how many cops there are in the country. So I can't tell you. You might not be able to find one somewhere, but I've never heard of one, never seen one. Don't know anybody who ever knew one.
I read 800,000, but whatever. We're talking about
800,000. Yeah, you're talking about it's not quite the same as the Army, but it's surprisingly not far from it.
Yeah, the officers out there on patrol are doing the best they can with the hand they're dealt. And as I said when we talked before, when they decide to make a stop or answer a call, you don't know the race or the sex of the people. And if you're policing after dark, you can't see who's in that car. And with a lot of modern cars, there's just enough tint on the windows. Unless the sun is shining right in there, you probably can't even see who's in there in the daylight. You're lucky if you even know how many people are in it. And I mean, it's not reasonable to think that quote hunting is going on. It's not.
And that brings up a point that we wanted to discuss. Let's talk for a minute about the difference between reality and Hollywood. Army's 560,000. Thanks, Sergeant Major. So there are more cops than there are active uniformed soldiers, active duty soldiers. Shit, by over 50%. That's pretty significant. Anyway, so let's do a little compare and contrast on Hollywood versus reality. So you're in the patrol car, call comes in over the radio. How much information do you actually get out of a call over the radio? I mean, it's not like they're calling in and telling you exactly what the suspect's name is. You're not suddenly getting their birthday and their social security number over the radio. What do you get when you get a call on the radio that you're going to respond to? Let's take the Floyd case for example. You got one dude trying to pass off a single counterfeit 20. What did that radio call from dispatch most probably sound like?
The radio call would come out. They give whatever the signal is for your department. That would signify counterfeit material. Counterfeit material, once you pass it, it's a felony. And that's probably all you're going to get. Is
not even a description of the suspect.
You may or may not get that.
Okay.
Well, what about after the cops actually arrive on scene? Once they have your name, they put you in the database. What they show you in Hollywood is basically you know everything about them. You know what they had for breakfast that morning. Once, and specifically what we're asking is, take George Floyd, for example. It's come out that dude had anywhere from 7 to 9 felony convictions, depending on what source you go to. Once they've got his name, they put it in their computer. How quick do they know they're dealing with somebody that's got a long felony history?
Well, there are two systems in play. One of them is active warrants. If there's an active warrant, that information we're supposed to get almost instantaneously. We don't, but we're supposed to. The other is criminal history. We have no access to that. You can't get that. There are all kinds of laws in place on that, and if you improperly access the NCIC or GCIC database, that's 5 years in prison.
So you could...
We
Go
do
ahead.
not know, unless you know them personally, which it appears they did know each other personally. You do not know their criminal history on the scene. You don't know that until you're trying to go get warrants, and you have to get a criminal history for what's their bail going to be and that kind of thing. But you don't know the criminal history.
Okay, so it's a total X factor. Somebody could literally have gotten out of jail for assault and battery yesterday, and unless you personally know that, you don't have any legal way of getting that information on the spot.
That's right. Tell you a quick story. Had a guy get out of jail at DeKalb County, Memorial Drive in 285, and in less than 2 hours, he was breaking into a car dealership within eyesight of the jail. Now, somehow or another, he's already got a pistol. So as we show up, we finally run him down and catch him. And then out of jail 2 hours. When we were trying to get him identified, we got a call from a jailer, said the description on your radio matches somebody we just got out. Another supervisor went over there. He'd been released 2 hours ago. Already out, breaking into a business and got a gun.
Wow. Okay, so let's
responded. Didn't know that. All they knew was we have a business burglary in progress. That's all they got.
Okay, so the cops that responded to George Floyd, all they knew was felony, counterfeit material, and they just responded.
That's right. I'm sure that, I can't say that 100%, but I'm sure that's the case. They would not have known his criminal history, I can tell you that, because that's illegal.
Now, the 911 call includes verbiage from the caller that says that they described him as drunk, that he was very difficult to deal with because of how intoxicated he was. How possible is it that they had that information before they got there?
That's likely, because that sounds like whoever the caller was. That also will obviously heighten the officer response. I mean, try and arrest a drunk. Just have fun.
Especially a very large one, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so I would assume that dispatch is going to try to relate absolutely maximally any information that's collected from the caller who's calling 911.
Oh, yes. They do the best they can to provide us with whatever information they have.
So
and, of course, sometimes the information that they're giving isn't accurate.
Yeah.
So all these cops knew is drunk felon rolling up to the scene.
Right.
Okay, so let's get into the real meat of it. We've had conversations about the video privately. I don't want to lead you too much. I'd rather you just give your thoughts on it, uncolored.
On
the video that, yeah, on the video that has set the country on fire.
The one.
Okay. I'll break it down this way. As we in law enforcement have to deal with each one of these situations as they come up, of course, maximum scrutiny is given to every one of them. We'll go over them in roll call, and we pick them apart. We Monday morning quarterback the crap out of each other because we have to. So every little thing in nuance has gone over and over and over. But there are some videos that the police look at and they go, ooh, that looks bad. Hope there's more to this. And this is certainly one of those. Now, there are a lot of theories and stuff floating around out there. One of the biggest red flags for me from the beginning on this thing was when the information came out that the two of them worked security at the same club on the same night for a year or more. They knew each other. There's no doubt. So there was obviously more in play in this situation than we know, and probably a lot more. What's the real reason this happened? There's probably a host of them, but I can tell you the least likely thing is white cop decides he's going to kill a black man. I ain't buying it. No. And how many times have we been lied to about that in the last 50 years? And then all the information comes out, the facts come out. Well, that's not what happened at all. Hands up, don't shoot. Oh, the gentle giant. No, he didn't do any of that. Witnesses and family members out there saying, oh, he had his hands up, the cop just shot. All BS. All BS. But when that part of the story comes out, there's media silence.
Okay. Now, you described in the video that one of the things that you noticed is you could tell that George Floyd was in trouble immediately, long before he went limp. In fact, you told me that you feel like he probably died right there on scene.
Yes, I think he did. Yeah.
And what is it? You used a term I'd never heard before to describe the distress he was in. And I don't mean excited delirium. You called it some kind of code.
Sorry, I don't remember that.
Okay, I guess I should keep a pen and paper with me. Okay, so they knew each other because from what I've been able to put together, the situation went something like this. The phone call came in, the first two cops get on the scene, and he's already in the vehicle. He's behind the wheel of the vehicle. There's some minor resistance in getting him out of the vehicle. He is then cuffed. He's walked over to the second police car that has arrived on the scene. And it's my understanding that Chauvin was actually in the second police car that arrived on the scene. So, and unfortunately, and I mean, and it is such a damn shame that literally right as they start to try and put him in the car, another car blocks the view of the camera that's on the street. So you can't see what happens in those few seconds. And then, of course, the next thing all of us see are the three cops sitting on top of him.
And there is body cam footage that shows what happened in those 3 seconds that are blocked by the car. We haven't seen any of that footage, but it exists. And that sticks in me so hard. If there is anything at all about that footage, if there was anything at all about that footage that was not essentially exculpatory, if not explicitly exonerating, it would be front page everything. But it's not. I find the entire thing suspicious when Okay, so here's what's happening. Here's what's happening in a nutshell. This is a murder trial that is being tried in the court of public opinion, and the mainstream media is the prosecution. The failure to supply, to publish, and to examine that footage is tantamount to spoliation. The mainstream media, which has chosen to try this case in the court of public opinion, is deliberately withholding evidence. And anytime there's a case of spoliation associated with a case, the judge's orders are to assume that the missing evidence is the most damning it could possibly be. It is the worst possible piece of evidence that could have been available to the party suppressing said evidence. So if there's a gun that suddenly goes missing in a murder trial, the judge is going to instruct the jury, you should assume that ballistics match and that the accused's fingerprints are on that weapon, because there's no other reason to risk the crime of destroying evidence than to protect yourself from the greater crime of being convicted on the merits of that evidence. As long as we don't have that body cam footage, I say everybody's a liar.
Okay, two things are in play here. You're absolutely right about the media. And the whole reason we even know about this is this situation fits the false narrative they've been trying to shove down our throats since the 80s. So the optics are right for them. I tend to believe that it is more likely that the body cam footage shows him struggling, not the other way around. And that's part of why it isn't out. But since this is now a criminal investigation, legally they can't release that information yet. It's part of a criminal investigation. So now we're in this catch-22, and the cops are always in this catch-22 when this goes on. You got the media that puts out their version of the story, and they hammer it and hammer it and hammer it. Well, the police can't respond because that information is part of an active investigation and therefore can't be released.
So we've got our buddy Danielle in the chat. She's saying that the AG who refuses to release the footage is the father of the leader of the Minneapolis City Council. But this is probably not some type of inside baseball. This is standard procedure once this becomes a criminal case.
That's right. Body camera footage is public information unless it's part of a criminal investigation. And if it is germane to the criminal investigation, then that will be sealed until the investigation is completed.
Okay, but I guess part of what bothers me about it is, I mean, things leak to the press all the time. Whether or not they're supposed to doesn't matter a damn. And I strongly suspect if this showed anything that would make the cops look bad, it would have already accidentally been leaked to CNN.
That I believe that absolutely, yes.
Okay, so I did some research on Chauvin. He's a training officer, and apparently he's gotten multiple medals of valor. Like at one point in time, there was a domestic violence situation going on, and he had to kick in a bathroom and shoot a perp in the stomach, and he was awarded a Medal of Valor for this. It makes it hard, and this is just me on the outside looking in, but it's hard for me to believe that the type of officer that wins awards is also going to be the same type of officer that after a near 20-year career with rookie cops, like one of the cops that was out there on scene with him, that was his 5th ever shift, literally. And it just, something doesn't smell right where a guy who's been on the force for almost 20 years is suddenly just going to go so radically rogue.
Okay, so let me dispel a little bit of naivete there for you, just from my experience in the military. there are a lot of awards, even very high-level awards, that are not actually awarded for legitimate merit, no matter what anybody else says. They're political maneuvers made by superiors and peers as rewards for... Sometimes those awards are part of the good old boys system. Plain and simple. I don't know that was the case with Chauvin, but sometimes you're the first American to put down the enemy ambush, and you never even hear a Bronze Star mentioned. So, just a little perspective there. The award doesn't necessarily mean that he deserved to receive it.
I agree with that, and I have also seen that. I've seen some things that make you go, ugh. But the other side of that coin is you got a guy that's been in the biz for 20 years. He's got a track record. And just being in there 20 years, if he was actually a black person hunter, there'd be lots of evidence of that. He probably wouldn't make it 20 years. I mean, it'd be, that stuff really sticks out, and other cops hate that, because anytime a cop does something wrong, it taints every single one of us. And I mean, it hangs on almost forever. I mean, when I was working the streets, we were still hearing crap over Rodney King. It just, so those of us who have to work those streets every day, we hate that. It makes our job so much harder. So
there's the fact that he was a training officer. And again, I understand how you could get promoted based on political motivation and the good old boy network. There's also his 18 complaints, his 17 complaints. There's a bit of a discrepancy. And as far as being able to get information about the complaints, the best thing that I could find was a heavily redacted, I mean, it was like literally a single page that had like personnel file number and a little tiny amount of information about whether or not it was handled with discipline or handled without discipline, and then a little tiny amount of information about what that discipline was. And out of his 18 complaints, it looks as though what he was disciplined for was a woman was going 10 miles over, and for some reason she got pulled out of the car and placed in the back of his car temporarily while they were on scene, and he received a written letter of warning as his discipline. All the other ones, there's literally no information on, and that little bit of information that I just gave you has been all that I've been able to find. So it makes it really difficult to gauge, and if you got a guy that's been on the force for 18 years and he's got 18 complaints, I mean, that's one a year. Is that a lot? Is that average?
I'd call that low, and it depends entirely upon the officer. And sometimes, I worked with a guy, he's a good guy, but he could show up on a scene, not say a word, and somebody would complain on him. I mean, I've been called in before, and then somebody be saying, well, I just didn't like his attitude. He didn't say anything. He showed up as a backup officer, and when the backup officers arrive, there's some tactical things I'm not going to discuss, but they'll hang back. He hangs back. He's there if we need him. That's what he's there for. He's not directly involved unless it goes to hell. But I can't tell you how many times somebody called just complained on this guy for he was too aggressive. Standing there. Complaints are, for example, our department, if you call and complain on an officer, it's a big deal. No matter how ridiculous the complaint is, it's a big deal. It's a big investigation. And when it's all over, let's suppose at the end of it, we discovered that the person flat out lied, made the whole thing up. You know what happens to them?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yep.
And police
Like false
raised,
rape claims.
yeah. And so now you got a complaint in your jacket, and it stays in your jacket. It was all bogus. They lied. One of the best things when the body cams first came out, what they showed, and ironically, real quick, the ACLU decided they didn't like them.
Because people lie.
The idiot that the police dealt with is now on video as the idiot he was. Not the guy that shows up in court clean and pressed and all looking nice in his suit and, I'm the victim in it. The idiot we dealt with at the scene is on that video, and they hate it because you can't argue with it. So what they've basically shown so far is we were doing it right. And it's, of course, now it's being used for other purposes. But the point is, those cops didn't all of a sudden decide, got a body cam now, I can't be bad anymore. BS.
You told me.
You're not.
You told me when the body cam movement started that one of the unintended side effects was 90% of these complaints were just they were gonna go away because the body cam was gonna tell the truth. And
the last year that or two that I had to handle complaints as a sergeant, I actually had fun because I'd look at the body, I'd watch the body cam, then I call the complainant, I'll let them go through all this stuff, and then I tell them, well, you realize that officer's wearing a body cam, and I've seen everything that was on it. I know exactly what was said and done. I know what you said. I know what you did. And I've had them say, that body cam's bull. Really?
yeah, this is YouTube. You don't have to censor yourself. We're not going to get an FCC complaint.
I used to have that trouble in roll call, because ironically, you're not even supposed to cuss. That's how serious it is. But yeah, all the complaints that I would have to spend hours and hours and hours investigating before body cam, after body cam, watch the body cam, and they're lying.
Okay, so what about this specific thing that he was disciplined for? Where, and this is obviously you guessing, but if he received basically a written warning saying, don't do that again, just knowing what we do know about it being 10 miles an hour over, and he temporarily put her in the back of his car, could you? Oh, yeah.
I can speculate very easily there. I'll tell you a quick story. On Old Road 920, when I was working East Precinct, there were constant calls of people running the lights, particularly during the rush hours, and they gridlock that intersection. You can't get through. And look, I'm talking about it was red 4 cars back, and you still went through because you're not sitting through that light again. So we are ordered, go out there and clean this up, take care of this problem. And I was training a guy at the time. So I get this little red Camaro, run that light. I mean, just blows it bad. Stop him. And when I walk up to the car, this little female in the car looks at me and says, "What the fuck is your PC for stopping me?" Well, hold on a minute, ma'am. I'll give that to you in writing. I need your driver's license, please. Now, it went real downhill from there. You talk about, she called me everything you could think of. My rookie was sitting there wide-eyed. We got back to the car, and he said, "What is wrong with her?" And I said, "I don't know." And then I got the whole I'm pre-law and yeah. So that kind of an attitude,
You didn't tell her, well, I'm post-law, shithead.
Particularly when they do that kind of thing in public. Or when we went to court, the judge even asked me, he said, "Why didn't you make a disorderly conduct arrest?" And I said, "Well, it's close to the end of my shift, and I still had to do all my rookie's paperwork, and so I just didn't do it." So people in the courtroom are laughing now. So yeah, I could have arrested her if she behaved so poorly on that scene. She was losing her mind. So who knows? Maybe he did take. The thing that gets left out of so many of these stories is the behavior of the suspect up to the point of where whatever went wrong. Now, they want to pick it up right from where it went wrong and go with the whole he or she did do nothing, and now the cop just jumped all over them. No. 23 years, I've never seen that. Never. Unprovoked, never. Now, do cops sometimes get their button pushed and respond poorly? Of course, we're human.
Nah.
Get spit on, and most of us will take the suspension.
Okay. We have a commenter asking the question: is there a cap on the time frame for a complaint? Could something happen and then 3 years later they say, "Oh yeah, by the time that one time that officer was so mean to me"?
For DeKalb, technically no, but it's going to be. You want to make one that much later? Let's just say it's not going to receive the same priority as somebody who calls in and said, "Hey, this just happened," because that's what people do. You know, if you truly feel you have been violated somehow, they complain right away. The number one complaint at the police department is rudeness. That's it. Number one, cop was rude. Well, that's ambiguous. And also, what did you do to trigger that? Because rarely does the cop just walk up and become a jackass. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying it's rare. And having to deal with complaints too, I can tell you, you don't know what that officer just went through 5 minutes ago.
So let's kind of bring it around so that we can get to the other real hot button thing. Because we're just going to offend everybody today, and we're going to enjoy doing it.
Why not?
In your opinion, is a murder charge appropriate?
Not based on the information known so far.
Because, I mean, one of the things that we looked up was like he had meth and fentanyl in his system. And apparently it's pretty common to lace other drugs with fentanyl, because apparently if you've got a little bit of chemistry under your belt, it's fairly easy to manufacture. And then you take really shitty meth, but you put just a teeny bit of fentanyl in it, and suddenly it's really awesome meth. And
oh, you didn't mean that F-bomb.
Oh. Anyhow, and then apparently one of the things that can happen is you got somebody that's an experienced drug user, as George Floyd was, given the fact that like half of his arrests were cocaine possession. And they will think they are doing, I'm going to say it this way, the appropriate amount of methamphetamine.
We actually discussed this in some detail earlier today.
But then what they're unaware of is that there's fentanyl in their meth, or fentanyl in their crack, or whatever.
Right.
And
so we're not talking about somebody who has mixed them together themselves because they want to get a better high. We're talking about somebody that does a bunch of coke or a bunch of meth and has bought some without knowing that it's laced.
And so now all of a sudden you've got this super powerful synthetic opioid in your system. And the ignorant view goes something like, well, you got a downer and an upper, so they'll kind of balance each other out. And in reality, that's not how it works at all.
Hey, Bruno just popped in. Brother, you're almost an hour late. What's up?
No, he was here for our error. Anyhow.
But yeah.
What I see in this is obviously an in-custody death. The Georgia code, if you were going to charge him, would have been involuntary manslaughter, unless there's something to show something else. And of course, the only thing anybody wants to focus on is the officer's knee on his neck. And I'm not saying that's not bad. I'm just saying that is not the only factor in this death.
Is it possible that because, I mean, he smoked cigarettes, he had a long history of drug abuse, He was so whacked out of his mind that the 911 caller described him as drunk. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, once he decided to fight the cops, is it entirely possible he was dead no matter what they did? I mean, because as I understand,
it's one of the problems is, of course, now we'll never know. But sure, that's possible. Because now we're back to he decided to fight the police.
Because as I understand it, once you start to crash from excited delirium, unless you've got EMTs there on the spot, you're probably fucked.
Yeah, excited delirium, if that was the case. I couldn't see him good enough to make that kind of a judgment, but that's also a distinct possibility if that's what it was. It could have happened anyway. And I'm not sure, except for the fact that it looks really bad, that the officer's knee on his neck was the deciding factor. It may have happened anyway just from the struggle.
Well, what about the other two cops?
One of the things that we talked about getting ready for this show that Cameron and I talked about, I think there's a good argument to be made. It could have been a knee in the neck. It could have been just a knee on the back. It could have been a leg bar, an arm bar, a headlock. It could have been a bear hug. Basically, it could have been. And I'm not saying that the knee didn't kill him, other than, it's a non-lethal technique. It's a decidedly non-lethal technique. It's a decidedly non-lethal technique to which I have personally been subjected in training.
Well, and it's part of Minneapolis guidelines. This is a legal move.
Yes. But basically, the autopsy seems to suggest that it was the drugs combined with his bad health that was exacerbated by the arrest. So what I'm getting at there is, it could have been any other kind of hold. Just the mere fact of him fighting with somebody, struggling with somebody, that drastically increased level of physical exertion could be all it took. Did I just lose Cameron?
I feel like I'm still here.
Your video just dropped off and there it is back. That one.
Well, I believe
I think your crappy internet is failing us again, Cameron.
But anyway, I'm sorry, Ted. You were saying
he decided to fight with the police. That's the primary factor. He made a choice to resist arrest, and in combination of other factors, he didn't survive. But where's the responsibility for him deciding to fight the police? Why is that ignored in this?
I'm with you on that one. We're just going to pretend like a 46-year-old man had no agency in his own life. Like, he was literally committing a felony while he was high on drugs. How did you see that plan working out in the best case scenario, much less the worst case scenario? I mean, it bothers me. It bothers me for the same reason that it bothers you, is I've actually gotten pretty jaded. Now, at this point, when I hear evil white murdered some poor Dindu black, I automatically assume that that's the one thing that didn't happen. Even in the rare instance where you can find racial history in with the white person, there's also this other thing. Well, didn't do nothing. It's not exactly what happened at all. Not even a little bit. Because even there's some footage from Arberry from 2017 that's come out, and they're trying to portray the officers as being unreasonable, but Arberry's yelling at these cops. I'm just sitting here in the fucking park. Why are you bothering me, man? This is bullshit. And I can't envision talking to a cop that way. And for the most part, I can't even envision talking to another human being that way. That sounds like a recipe to get punched in the mouth. And I like my teeth where they are. So the fact that you would do it to a dude literally carrying multiple weapons, a Batman utility belt, who's all armored up. I mean, no, the didn't do nothing part of it in particular, as far as I can tell, is always false. Always.
Yep.
Yep.
In fact, I'll take it just a step further. If the Dindu narrative headline is ever not false, it will not be a headline.
I think your coffee refill is incoming.
It's here.
Oh, that just
This
happened
is-
live.
This
That was
is somebody
funny.
else's hot young wife, though. Thank you, Isaac.
Oh dear. Okay.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Oh, it's
I will
good to
say,
have.
in general, like the public that I dealt with, what I will call the normal people, they way outnumber the bad people. But the bad people are given all the microphones, so they
like
blow this up
vegans.
to make it look a lot worse than it is.
Yeah, and then we're going to turn George Floyd into the martyr that he's not. I mean, he got a gold-lined coffin. Like, what are we doing? We're talking about a guy that pistol whipped a pregnant woman. Like, his life went wrong a long time ago. It did. The stream keeps trying to drop random F-bombs, Chris. I'm keeping an eye on it on my phone, and I keep seeing the beginning of the thing.
Do what now?
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I keep catching it out of the corner of my eye because I'm paying attention on my phone.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Okay, so
I just pulled it back up over here. I had moved it so that I could monitor another piece of the transmission. So, do say something if it keeps happening.
yes, sir. So okay, now let's just get into all the trouble. Arberry, and I just want to touch back on the points you made earlier. If you want to abolish the police, there's going to be more Ahmaud Arbery situations that happen, because folks are not going to sit for not being policed. And if you force them to do it themselves, they will.
Well, look
So-
what's already happened in Antifistan. There's already information that's come out of there where their citizen group, or whatever in the heck those insurrectionists are calling themselves, have told people on the streets, don't you dare question me or I'll blow your brains out. Is that
Oh,
what you want it replaced with?
God, yes.
Because that's what you're going to get.
okay. You got to read
instant
Lindsay's
they
comment.
the instant that they established Antifistan in the people's bizarrely liberated republic of the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, which, as Razor Fist so correctly said, no, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone is not the shittiest level of Sonic the Hedgehog, but it is where liberty goes to die. They began, or no, more correctly, it is where the Democrat argument goes to die. So all these gun grabbers, ban the guns, abolish the police, nutbags. They go and they run all the cops out of a police precinct using violence and force, and they immediately establish an armed police state with violent, abusive cops, like you said, do it or I'll blow your brains out. We've got that on tapes for real. They have instituted stop and frisk, built walls, and declared themselves to be no longer the United States.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, first
our
of all, we've
comments
got-
thread has been on fire today.
First of all, we've got Lindsay trying to just shut the entire comments section down, and we love you for it. I'm just going to pick one out. She says, "I would let my husband pistol whip me, pregnant or not." Growl. Oh Lord. Okay. Now, there was a question a little bit back. Wow, Mark Furman, that's awesome. Great screen name. We had a comment that asked a question, wanted your personal thoughts on there's good cops and then there's crooked cops, and you've told me this before privately, but how do good cops or even mediocre cops feel about the crooked cops?
Can't stand them, and they're also really rare, or they hide really good. Because if they're out there doing it and other officers see it, yeah, I used to tell my troops at every roll call, you're going to get out here, you're going to be treated as bad as it gets. And if your buttons get pushed, one of your buddies needs to step in and take over. And you need to you need to let that go, back it down, and let them step in. Don't let them push your buttons. That's what they want. It's deliberate. They're trying to provoke you. So most of us will deal with that constantly, and then try to look out for each other to make sure when they start talking about what they're going to do to your wife, that you don't make their face inverted.
Gotcha. So, Lindsay's married to Isaac. Isaac is also a cop somewhere up north. I'm not entirely sure where, but Isaac seconds that. He says no one wants to work with a bad cop.
That's exactly right. They do not. They don't even want to work with a lazy one, much less a bad one.
Okay. I ain't gonna lie. I'd rather work with a bad one than a lazy one. At least I can trust the bad cop to have his own self-interest at heart enough to maybe return fire when I need him to. I'll take crooked over lazy every time.
Okay, Drew, maybe I'm not. I thought we just answered your question. And then, that was really good. There was one earlier that said, so they're blaming the victim for not being healthy enough to be victimized.
Somebody actually said that.
Yes, but I suspect there's a bit of sarcasm baked into that.
Okay, gotcha.
That's just my guess. Okay.
See, sadly, I deal with people who say things like that with a straight face. They mean it.
Yeah. Well, let's do one more comment and then we move on to the really offensive stuff. Somebody's asking, can you be a good cop and crooked?
No.
So just, wow, you didn't even have to nothing to add. Just no, that's not how it works.
That's right. No, that's not how it works.
Well, because one of the
you're crooked, you're first thing you're doing is you're violating your oath of office. And I'm sorry, I take that real serious.
Oh, you mean like when a Democrat swears to uphold and defend the Constitution?
Exactly.
Yes, precisely like that. So, okay. Just one more thing, kind of in reference to Brandon Tatum's video that he put out earlier. One of the things that he said is you take the shittiest cop, not a crooked cop, but you take the shittiest cop and you compare them to your average person, and that shitty cop most of the time is actually going to be more virtuous than your average person. You just have to have a certain mentality to be a cop, or you're gonna wash out.
I agree with that. Not everybody can do it.
Okay, all right. Now the fun one. Ahmed Arbery. Do you have that? Do you have that summary that I sent to you earlier, Chris?
Do you perhaps mean this one?
Oh, that one indeed.
I made a good show prep today.
Oh, well, that's
Your video keeps cutting in and out when we go to this screen.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
And just real quick, Parnell Jenkins is back in is back in our comments section again. He's one of the trolls that we had the other day. I'm not going to address your comments too much, Parnell, but I will go ahead and tell you, look, we're doing our stream. You're welcome to watch. Please, you're welcome to comment. I enjoy a little bit of pushback. If you don't have anything amusing, interesting, constructive, fact-based, or useful to add, and all you're going to do is keep blathering active terrorist organizational logos and platitudes like BLM and we can police ourselves, yo.
Then get started.
Then
shots fired.
Just go to work, and maybe one day you'll have a job and be a person.
And if folks hate the police so bad, folks hate the police so bad, why do they call 911?
Yeah, like seriously.
We'll show up if you don't call.
Yeah, and you want to police yourself? Fine. Stop voting for Democrats, vote for Republicans. Let's roll back gun control legislation so it's actually easier for you to own a firearm legally and can defend your own house. Let's do that.
Can you imagine if all the good people in Chicago realized they actually have a right to defend themselves?
Oh, yeah.
How much power would the perps have then? Because the perps are way outnumbered by you take the worst area in Chicago, and I guarantee you for every one bad guy, there's 10 good ones. But the good ones can't defend themselves.
Yes, and that's the problem, because there's such heavy gun control in Chicago. Okay.
Just roll on.
Sam, we're gonna have to stop with the comments for a minute. This is too much fun.
Trying to murder me.
So what's coming out with?
My kid won't clean their room. Could you come tell him to listen to me?
Do you think we haven't gotten that call?
I was about to say I will lay this down on the table and bet that's a. Or here, how about I'll lay this down on the table and bet you that's a legit call.
Yes. We've gotten that call. We've gotten my 6-year-old refuses to go to school. I kid you not.
I have a UTI. Send police.
Oh.
Okay. You got me on that
one. Oh. Okay. All right. Ahmed Arberry. These are the developments, and they're ugly. And this is your trigger warning from this point forward. You need to be able to engage your logos and put your emotion to the side. You've got to be able to think to participate in this part of the conversation. Okay? So here we go.
Before we move forward, let me say this. It may not be possible to be a crook and a bad cop. I'm sorry, a crook and a good cop. But it is possible for a bad person to also on occasion be not wrong. One might even go so far as to call that correct.
So it's 2:00 at Officer Anderson's house.
Yeah, sure, turn that thing off.
Well, we probably shouldn't keep trolling too far past the 1 hour mark. And hey,
yeah, but
don't get it twisted. We've got a nice busy chat channel. We've got a lot of people watching the show right now. I enjoy the hell out of that. I'm glad you're here. I hope we've gotten some laughs. Y'all got some chuckles. But if I'm not mistaken, the Sergeant Major's about to start throwing catfish and hot oil in just a minute here, and I ain't gonna miss a whole lot of that.
All right. So let's jump right into it. The developments with the Ahmed Arbery case is that the most salacious one is that after Arbery fell to the ground, Travis McMichael said the only word we don't use on this channel because we're white and we're not allowed to. And this is actually part of what we wanted to talk to you about. Is what was really disturbing to me is that the GBI had an incredibly broad search warrant. They were able to go through their text messages and their social media posts. And one of the things that was even used as evidence was some time ago, Travis McMichael said, "I really like my job. I'm out here on a boat, and there are none of those N-words around." So there does appear to be a racist element that is actually part of this story. But before we even get to that, how do you get a search warrant that broad? That there's something in that doesn't smell right to me.
Well, social media, they probably don't even need a search warrant for. You put it on the internet, baby. Oh well. I mean, that's a gift. You know, some of our detectives used to say, "Once I got your cell phone, I've got your ass." So,
I don't even need that.
No, but they went through his text messages. The guy that filmed it, Roddy, apparently, and there's been no clarification as to what it was, but they went through his text messages and they found racial slurs in his text messages. And now I don't know what those racial slurs were.
Okay, well, that's stupid and ignorant and all this.
But they need to prove that the McMichaels are racists because they cannot prove that the McMichaels are guilty.
There you go. The bottom line in all this is, you know, I've thought a lot about the First Amendment and what it says, and the Second Amendment and why it says, and why are they in the order that they're in? Well, the answer is simple. An armed man can defend a small amount for a certain period of time. A lot of armed people can defend more and more and more and more. If I can control your speech, I can control millions without firing a shot. Now, think of the power in, I can say this because of my skin color, but you can't because of yours.
Right, and
if you ever do, you're ruined forever. Everything else you ever did in your life doesn't matter. You know, Sometimes people get mad and say stupid stuff.
So, and like I just said, they need to prove he's a racist because they can't prove that he's guilty. And the reason, this is one of the reasons that the lefties love the whole racist thing. They live on fallacy generally, and the fallacious basis of calling somebody a racist is it's a non-falsifiable claim. If I say that a person is racist, all they can do is say, "No, I am not racist." It's like saying there's no God. And, oh yeah? Prove it. I don't have to prove it. That there is not a God is a claim for which evidence cannot exist, because that's why, and this is exactly the reason that our standard of legal defense is innocent until proven guilty, because it is impossible to prove a negative. A thing which doesn't exist, there's not evidence of its non-existence. Evidence only ever pertains to something that is extant.
Your daughter-in-law just said hello. Not yours, Chris. None of your kids are yet.
Yours, Rick. I don't have one of those.
Yet.
Okay. It's going to be a while.
Yeah, and apparently there's a whole lot more to this as well. First of all, Roddy, the third man, the man that made the videotape, he's the one who's making a lot of these claims that Travis called him an effing blankety blank after he shot him. So then, this is the same guy that wasn't initially arrested, and he was going on CNN trying to say, well, I have no idea. I have no idea. And now suddenly he's also been arrested with murder, and the story's changing, and he's trying to roll over on the McMichaels and say, well, they were the bad guys. They were the bad guys. And I can't help but feel like, maybe I don't trust you so much, Mr. Roddy, because that's an awful quick 180 pan there from what you were originally saying. You had no clue what was going on, but then they find cloth fibers that match Arberry's shirt on your truck. But you tried to tell everybody you didn't participate in the chase. See, it just, no.
And just another little piece. The McMichaels have had it stacked against them from the get-go. The homeowner told the McMichaels that property had been stolen from his home. He reported that some $2,500 worth of tools and fishing equipment had been stolen from his home. And then he later recanted those claims and said, no, nothing's ever gone missing from the home. Speaking about the home that Arberry was caught breaking into on multiple occasions with the obvious intent to commit a felony, making it felony trespassing rather than misdemeanor trespassing. As a multiple previously convicted felon who knew that if he was taken down in a citizen's arrest, he'd be facing at least a third felony count, being a third strike, and you're going away. He wasn't just a felon. He was about to go away forever for having at least his third strike. That's also probably an important factor here.
Yeah, one of the things that you talked about the first time you came on the show with us is that, you have to have reasonable, articulable suspicion. Even if these guys are absolute flaming racists that they've secretly got swastikas tattooed on their ass cheeks, does that really mean they no longer have reasonable, articulable suspicion? Because, yeah, well,
I mean, you can be a jackass and still be right.
I'm pretty sure a cop just went behind you with his blue lights on there, Rick. On the street outside the window, on the other side of that pleated plaid pink.
I do live on a busy road.
Thing.
Yes.
Wait till a fire engine comes by. If it does, I'm gonna have to hit mute.
Shoot, buddy.
So, and that doesn't change the facts. But these guys, there's no possible way you can get. There's no. Sorry, our comments are distracting me. They're funny. But there's no possible way that. Oh, good God. Thank you, commenters. You did it. You blew me up. That was fantastic. I lost the plot. Whew, buddy. Okay, but part of what reasonable articulable suspicion. There we go. Okay. Apparently this house.
Here, I'll pop this one at you.
Apparently this house had so many trespassers in it that there was like a community Facebook page that had been created, and people would share photos and be like, oh, this is the second time this person trespassed in this house, and then this is the third time this person trespassed in this house. Be on the lookout. Be on the lookout. And let's not forget the little bit of video evidence that we have shows Aubrey walking to the house and then hanging around in the house. We don't actually see what he does. But felony trespass only requires a certain amount of intent, as I understand it. He could have been thinking about stealing something when he went inside, and that's what makes it a felony. Whether or not he actually
as you understand it. We explained this shit on the last live stream we did with your dad.
Yeah, we did.
Well, so that's how I understand
it. The question is it criminal trespass or burglary? And it doesn't, from what I've seen so far, it doesn't rise to burglary. But here you're dealing with another situation where the police or whoever, in this case, these citizens, are given a set of information that's false. This happens to police officers too. There he goes. He did it. Go get him. We chase him down. Oh, whoops. That ain't him. So, you try to dust them off and do the, okay, well, we just ran somebody down because you said he did it. This is another one of those, okay, they're acting in a capacity as private citizens, but they have this information. They pursue it, and then they find out that all the information they had wasn't accurate.
Now, one of the things...
This is important to hit on. Even if the guy actually said the things that they're claiming he said. Let me tell you, you get in a situation where you got to pull a trigger. If you think you don't have an adrenaline dump that you can barely control, and there's no telling what you're going to say. one of the most common things in a police shooting is, okay, officer, how many rounds did you fire? We don't know. You know, often we don't even hear the gun go off. You know how loud that sucker is when you're at the range with earplugs in? But pull a trigger in the field. Well,
yeah.
It's going to be even more so for a citizen with no training. You know, I assume the kid had no training, right? He's just a citizen. He was never a cop, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Isaac says we only ever get 100% accurate information as cops.
The other thing
Shit,
that
brother, I didn't know you were this funny.
I mean, a lot of cops are, man. It's that dark humor, that gallows thing. It's sort of like soldiers always have the best jokes. You can't ever tell your wife the joke, but they have the best jokes.
Yeah, my wife's heard those jokes.
Well, she's also in the military, so there's that.
Dark humor is like food. Not everybody gets it.
The other thing that a lot of people have really seized on here is a statement that the elder McMichael, Greg, George, it's G. McMichael, said to the cop.
It's Gregory, yeah.
Thank you. That Gregory McMichael said something.
I just happen to still have the article pulled up in front of me.
Oh, fantastic. But what he said when he was being interviewed by the detectives on the scene was he didn't see Arberry steal anything, but when he started to run away, he got a gut feeling that that's the guy. And the argument that's being made is because he said the word gut feeling, well, that's not reasonable suspicion anymore.
Okay. You got to, and the guy's running away. You got this gut feeling and the guy's running away. Come on. Saying that's not suspicious? It just doesn't pass the smell test. Come on.
Okay, so
running away.
So the fact that he would use a colloquialism while he's talking to a cop, because this is one of the big, in the article that I sent Chris, this is one of the bullet points. This is one of the main reasons why the investigator, and apparently this was like 7 hours of testimony, but one of the main reasons why the investigator concluded that this was not self-defense by the McMichaels, this was actually self-defense by Arberry, is because he got ran down because of some rando's gut feeling.
What a stretch. Okay, so what we're going to say here now is, well, if I decide to run away and somebody chases me, then I'm the victim. It doesn't matter what I did before. Hogwash. Come on.
Yeah, if you happen to punch the guy in the face 3 times before he shot you, that's a factor.
I'll tell you something else. Any cop that doesn't learn to use and trust his instincts better get out, or he's going to die.
Yeah, one of our commenters says it's called experience, and yes, there's actually a whole. We're not going to go into it because we're already over our hour, but there's this whole thing about how what people view as intuition or gut feeling or whatever is actually your subconscious mind engaging in pattern recognition. So it's a gut feeling, but in reality, you've seen this movie before and you're pretty sure you know what the end is. So saying that something is go ahead.
It's kind of like the guy with the drive-out tag, sees the police car, oh shit, and dips into a parking lot real quick. No, that's not suspicious to us. Gee, we don't notice that.
Okay, my wife has commented that we're 25 minutes over.
She's incorrect. We're 19 minutes over.
Appears to be incorrect. Yes, we're 19 minutes over. You're wrong, woman.
Oh, I wouldn't have gone there.
She's tough.
You're right,
she can
you're
handle
right.
it.
You're right. I should have said, "Yobo, yo."
But anyhow, I just like, is there anything else with the Arberry stuff? We got to Roddy. We got to the racial slurs. We talked about the broad nature of the war. Oh yeah. The broad nature of the warrant. If you're not the GBI, do you not get I don't know. It still just bothers me that they were allowed to comb through these guys' entire life because they're trying to prove them as racist and hateful instead of trying to prove them as murderers. That doesn't sit well with me. That is like,
well, if they were able to convince a judge the scope of the warrant allows whatever they wanted, but the social media thing, if you think your social media, whatever you put on here, won't come back to bite you if you ever did or something said something stupid, unless you're Hillary Clinton, it's there forever.
But what, like with a cloth? Because that's what she said. And said, "Did you wipe your
I
shirt?"
have bleach bit on my hard drive, don't you?
I don't even know where to get it. Like,
Oh,
that's,
God.
I'd never heard of
Lindsay
it.
Adams said #feminism. Die in a fire.
oh
Oh.
yeah, it was really equality. They'd call it equality.
They
But
do
anyhow,
equality.
okay.
Because they're liars.
But anyhow, well, Dad, we really appreciate it. It's nice to have a cop who can say this smells like bullshit, this doesn't smell like bullshit, and to actually have a police officer be able to look at the George Floyd video and say, yeah, that video looks real bad, but we don't know the whole story, and it's kind of suspicious. We really appreciate it because Chris and I run our mouths all the time, even if we are not strictly experts. So it's nice to have one that can actually offer some insightful commentary.
Well, one thing let me leave you with on that one is this. Just because I wouldn't have done that way doesn't make it wrong. I used to tell my troops all the time, there's a bunch of different ways to accomplish the same goal. I mean, I can tell you, it looks really bad, but if you're trained to do what all that is,
and he was trained to use this restraint.
And anybody who is resisting arrest, that arrest looks bad because they all do. The guy's fighting.
Yeah, violence is often beautiful, but it's never pretty.
All right, well, I say, okay, we're going to wrap it up right there. Rick, Cameron can text you my address. If you show up in the next half hour or hour or so, I'll feed you a hot fried fish. And apart from that, y'all have a great weekend, and we appreciate you coming out. Y'all be safe out there, and
like, share, subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe.
Can I bring my wife?
Sure, why not?
Vote Trump 2020.
Yeah. And we'll see you when you get here. Y'all be safe.
All right,
All right, gents, and that's the show.
That was fun.
We're up